It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we talk your property news and we wind down for the year, the third day of September of 2024, which is coming to a close. Of course, we're doing this 7 days a week. You can catch us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Well, if you were out over the weekend in Sydney and perhaps soaking up a little bit of the beachfront spots and looked around at the luxury properties and thought to yourself, if only. We live in hope, don't we? In saying that, you might be surprised to hear that Sydney's high-end waterfront suburbs are feeling the pinch, the squeeze, you could say, with house values dropping by up to 10% in the past 3 months. Well, CoreLogic has revealed the data, telling us that suburbs like Zetland down minus 10.1%, Rod Point minus 9.7%, and Abbotsford minus 8.1%. They led the downturn. Unit markets also followed suit with Karuba Point down minus 6.9%, McMahon's Point minus 5.3%. And we could go on, but these falls are concentrated in Sydney's top-tier properties above the city's 1.5 million median. So with that said, let's catch up this morning with Samuel Williams from Warwick Williams Real Estate there in Sydney. And welcome, Samuel, to the Real Estate Breakfast. How has your 2024 year been going for you, where you are?
2024 has been good. It's been quite steady. Most, or if not all, properties have been selling. Like you said, some of them coming off a little bit, but still a lot of buyers in the market. It's been a pretty successful year, given despite a bit of negativity in the media, which they always love to exaggerate a little bit. But yeah, it's been very good.
Oh, what are you saying? The media exaggerates. I find that hard to believe, Samuel.
No, it's they just need a lot of stories. So, but no, it's good. Keeps everyone talking and keeps the property market very relevant. So it's good.
Well, that's true. The media does definitely stimulate the talking, so many talking points across 2024. And that brings me on to this, and that is the affordability and interest rates. That has really played a significant role across the Sydney housing market this year. From where you sit, how have buyer expectations evolved? For example, in tightly held areas like Rod Point, which you are only too familiar with, are people still willing to pay a premium for specific features or locations at the moment?
Correct. So Rod Point's a very interesting suburb of about only 550 homes, and all pretty much homes. So some of it is lined along the infamous Inner West Bay run that we have here, so waterfront reserve property. But if you looking at the interest rates from, say, May 2022 to June 2023, in 2022, Rod Point only had 16 sales. And then you look at 2023, where it's gone up to about 27 sales. So, we're looking at 10 or 11 more sales. So a little bit more stock on the market, a little bit more choice for the buyers in the last, say, 18 months. And I think that's been a big contributor, as well as linked with the interest rates being settled down now for just over 12 months, is really hitting the borrowing capacity. So those all things combined is probably why you're seeing those statistics of Rod Point showing a near 10% downturn. And also, obviously, as you can expect in 2022, when there's only 16 properties on the market in what is generally a very tightly held area, then you're getting premiums just purely based on the supply and demand, as well as the buying conditions in 2022 at, borrowing at roughly around 2%. It was the perfect storm for, premium prices. So I guess, where it says a downturn, I'd say it's probably just come back to a slightly more normal level. But yeah, like I was saying, and things are still transacting. I think people are understanding that with the competition and the amount of properties currently on the market. In 2024, we've had 23 sales in Rod Point, with 11 still on the market coming into the last couple of weeks of the year.
Yeah, and in terms of the turnkey homes, they're still commanding this premium, and the labour costs, of course, for building anything new is just a real headache. So it's all about those properties being ready to move into.
100% turnkey. You're still getting your more buyers on auction day, or more people interested and ready to pay. I think it's not only the cost of the trades, but also the availability, and especially coming into like end of year or Christmas time where they're exceptionally busy. A lot of them are getting quotes to only start work, say first or nearly second quarter of 2025. So you're spot on. A lot of people probably, weighing up the options. Do I put a second story on my home and renovate, or do I buy the turnkey option? And at the moment, I think majority are opting for that turnkey option. So that means more stock on the market because they're selling the home that, that they don't want to renovate, and then buying the home that is fully turnkey and ready to go.
Yeah, and you're in a very interesting market there, particularly price point, because it goes anywhere between probably around that 800K up to 2 million, maybe with the apartments. And then you've got the super luxury between $10 and $15 million properties.
We do. We're very unique in that we've got a very interesting, a wide range of properties. I think units, we've even had some units in Drummoyne on the water with the harbour bridge views and everything. They can, off the plan and fully finished turnkey are getting, into the 10 million. So that's breaking new ground at the moment. And then, the records for your waterfront mansions are around that $15 million mark. But and then look at a Rod Point, for instance. You've got a very big mix of, majority of it around 370 to 400 square metres, so smaller block homes. And then the other half of Rod Point sit on like 600 to 800 square metre blocks that are a duplex site. So we get a very vast range of buyers. So a lot of first home buyers and executive couples for your smaller 2-bedroom apartments and the like.
Yeah, so that's all pretty interesting where you are. When we come back, we're going to ask you about these first home buyers, because many will ask, well, surely you're not probably transacting with too many of those first home buyers because of the price point. We'll ask that next after this.
Gain insights with exclusive conversations from real estate professionals about buying, selling and investing across Australia.
Well, as you know, we like to give you plenty of property tips from our real estate professionals, and this time we are going to New South Wales and Shannon Ferguson there in the snowy mountains. And good morning to you, Shannon. What have you got for us this morning?
Oh, good morning, Craig. Look, I think a worthwhile tip for those out in the market when they're searching a new area would be to have a look at the main real estate website portals, realestate.com domain, and instead of necessarily going to the for sale section, maybe go to the sold section. And that way you'll get a good idea of which agents are the most active in the area, and whether you're selling, that's a good way of finding an agent that is the most active, that's going to give you the most up-to-date and correct advice on how to sell your property. But also if you're buying, they're probably the agents that are best to talk to about getting the real inside knowledge of what's happening within the market and what's selling, and to get the right sort of advice in those particular areas.
1,000 episodes. A big thanks to all of our guests for their insightful knowledge, trends and forecasts. We look forward to another 1,000 episodes together.
And it is a Real Estate Tuesday. We're talking to Samuel Williams in Sydney. He's in one of those spots called Rod Point, which has been going backwards a little bit as reported by CoreLogic. Now, Samuel, most people probably will think first home buyers, you might not be dealing with too many of those, but of course you've got those executive couples that can sort of pack a punch with what they can bring to the table, I'm guessing. So are you dealing with those?
Yeah, dealing with a lot of the executive couples. And it's a really interesting space because you've got two types, the ones that are entering the market and buying your 2-bedroom units, and then the ones that had bought in the 2-bedroom unit market are trying to upsize from that and stay in the area if they can. A lot of people thought with those interest rate rises they'd be affected the most and that they would go backwards a little bit, whereas in fact a lot of those executive couples are very much getting the borrowing capacity of say $1 million to 1.2. So that market has remained quite strong, and there hasn't been a huge deal of supply in that area because they're selling within that 3 to 4 week range. So where one property comes on, another one sells. So it's kind of replacing the supply in the market. And then you've got those executive couples that are selling those 2-bedroom apartments have really got a borrowing capacity of around 2 to 2.2, where traditionally back in 2022, they were getting up to about $2.5 million to transfer from a unit into a home in the area.
So if you follow the borrowing capacity, you'd be licking your lips, wouldn't you, in terms of the interest rate falls and the way that that's going to probably dramatically change for executive couples' borrowing capacity?
Correct. You'd really like to hope the banks loosen up a little bit, especially if we do see a bit of a rate drop. Obviously, the sentiment will pick up in what already is a pretty strong apartment market here. And then, you'd like to see those where we're getting a lot of success in that 1 to 1.2. We'd like to see a rate drop or two really increase that borrowing capacity for those young couples to get up to that 1.3 to mid 1 million mark would be really great for the area in terms of growth.
Now, we talk about the premium prices there in Sydney during periods of low stock. What about the current market conditions? Could that lead to similar opportunities for sellers? Because you've probably got some of them just sitting on the sideline. Or are we in a sort of different phase of the market at the moment?
I think it's a different phase. You don't typically see a lot of premium property. A lot of people that build the premium property do it to live in it for quite a while. But even still, we've had a lot of duplex sites where brand new duplex and luxurious duplexes have been built, but quite a lot of them have hit the market and again given a lot of the buyers a fair bit of choice. But I do agree that if interest rates do drop, that could bring a bit of a splurge of stock as well as a whole new group of buyers to the forefront. So anything that is that turnkey, like we discussed, there's always a very strong market for it, and there's always a little bit more competition, which can always get you those premium results. So I think it'll be a very interesting time next year if interest rates do start to come off to see how those prices react.
So the magic wand for the first Q1 of next year, what would you like to see the most if you had that magical wish in your marketplace?
I'd love the RBA to come out and cut a rate. I think it's the market's calling for it, crying for it. I think a lot of these vendors have their prices set at a level, and I think a slight rate drop might actually just create a bit of confidence for people to stretch a little bit more. You're going to have a bit of leftover stock from this year into next year, as well as new stock and new buyers coming into the market. So we just like to hope that it's consistent. A lot of the properties continue to sell in the time frame that they should in a normal standard 4 to 5 week campaign, and just have a really positive mindset for the year starting. If we can get a nice good start rather than the RBA being reactive, be a bit proactive and get a bit of positivity in the market.
Sounds good. Yes, I wonder if we're going to have that positive start for 2025. Not too many sleeps, of course, to wait until we find out about that. Samuel, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning, and good luck with your run up to the end of the year.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Navigate the world of real estate like a pro, with expert insights, opinions and trends to up your game and knowledge when buying your next property.
And this new party would, of course, actually jeopardize votes away from the Greens and the Teals. And I would actually expect in the next 10 years or so, new parties to emerge in Australia. So this is a very, very real prospect, whether it will be just a housing-related party, but I would actually see this as very likely.
Is this decade, do you think, more important than many other decades when it comes to public transport and how many cars people are using.
In the last decade, we had the biggest generation ever, the millennials, in the one car per household phase. We are now, bit by bit, pushing them into the multiple cars per household phase of the life cycle. Millennials will buy cars at record numbers. That, of course, pushes more cars on the roads. And, of course, on the other end of the age spectrum, baby boomers for the next decade are still too young, too healthy, too active to give up driving.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.